if it will not come up in the questions that we'll get from the audience. So one of the problems, I think that for us lawyers or people that are working in ethics, is that we use terms like privacy and we have procedures and we comply. Everyone is complying with regulation, and my sense is that in some cases a lot of things just go under the radar because we don't have a language in law still to talk about it. So if I look at Palantir as an example, you've described to us a process that actually intend to bring ethics into the company. And it's really impressive, just by training and thinking and deliberating. But one of the problems, and I think that Michal actually raised this issue yesterday in her comments to you, but for those of you who weren't here yesterday, one of the problems that come to mind when we think about companies like Palantir that are actually providing services to the government is that this is a private company that is creating an added value. This is a Facebook of police stations, right, or of secret agencies, right, that is taking the data and from the customers and providing an added value, organizing, creating some new knowledge out of the data that it processes. And the question is, to what extent there is any thinking in the company about this public-private collaboration? How do you make sure that you work in the public interest? To make it more precise, for instance, you talked about being responsible, right, in your policy. How do you make sure that you're not serving, evil regimes? Is it just by, or that your customers are making good use? Is it just by controlling the customers? Is it by actually being in charge of what they do with their data?
It's a fantastic question. So the starting point is, I think, a point of clarification around how the software works. We provide software to our customers. It's usually instantiated within their secure facilities. So it isn't as though, I don't think the analogy of Facebook for corporations or institutions is quite apt. It isn't as though these institutions are handing their data over to Palantir. Rather, we're providing software that they host in secure facilities, and they interact with the data using the technology. So they're analysts responsible for carrying out the analytics over that data. What we provide is the software and the data integration to support those types of uses. But we also do have a direct hands-on role in terms of building out some of the workflows and use cases that make the system valuable. So there is the value add component. And there is a recognition that comes with that, which is a sense of responsibility that we bear, because we're not in the position of, I think, a standard commercial software provider. You can think of Microsoft Office as an example, where they sell a license to the software, they pass the software on, and they sort of wipe their hands clean of any onward uses of that information technology, because part of our deployment model is to set up the information system and provide ongoing training and support. We see on a day-to-day basis, to some degree, how the information system is being used, which means that we are responsible for making decisions on threshold questions about what sort of customers we should work with. And these are active areas of discussion and debate within the company, where we have to make choices about the sorts of countries that we serve, the sorts of institutions that we serve. And we make these decisions all the time. There are certain industries that we have decided that we will not work with. Tobacco is an example. There are certain countries and regimes that we make decisions that we will not work with because they don't support the Western liberal democracy and liberties that we associate with open societies. And furthermore, even within a lot of the institutions and the countries that we operate in, we have to make ongoing evaluations about what our customers ask us to do. For example, oftentimes not with any malicious intent, but a customer will be exposed to a new information technology, and they will ask us to enable a certain type of application or use of a new data source. And we have to take a step back and think about the normative questions that attach to that proposed use. And in some cases, we will turn down the support of that application, or we will work with the customer to help them acknowledge and understand what the risks are and identify if maybe there's an alternative approach that may be more defensible, or if outright it needs to be rejected in the case. But I get that's a long-winded response. The short answer is, you're right, there's a responsibility. These are things that companies like Palantir have to grapple with if they want to be clear-eyed about the sorts of capabilities that they're enabling.
I think I should get this question in my formal capacity, not in my current one, because I think, as was said, I bought software from Palantir. I got software from Palantir, and it's not very different from Microsoft Word. So intelligence organization may use a Microsoft Word to write a document to arrest a person. Worse than that, as a military, sometimes you write a Word document that tells someone to drop a bomb from an F-16. And the moral dilemmas and the regulation and the legal issues are all dealt by the customer in that context. Of course, there were many cases in the past in which intelligence organizations behave in a non-legal way or maybe an immoral way, but this is all the history, right? 1950s of the CIA, things that happened in Israel. So I think it's up to the governments to regulate intelligence organization, law enforcement, questions that I think AI in that sense doesn't bring anything new. I think the secrecy around Palantir and the fact that Leon Panetta, the former head of the CIA, said that due to the software they found Osama bin Laden. So people have this fantasy in their head that someone put a black box called Palantir and out comes Osama bin Laden. That's not the case. There were many analysts on the CIA side that were looking for Osama bin Laden, as I described that I was looking for terrorists that kidnapped 3 teenagers in the West Bank. There are other issues with AI that are more to do with that side of the table. The famous case, ethical case that was discussed much before AI, but is now relevant for autonomous cars, like if the camera is seeing like 2 options of crashing into a young baby, and what do you do, and how do the machine take decision, and who's responsible? These are new issues that come up, and you'll probably speak about.
Yeah, well, we can come back to that, but just to push you a little bit on this point, I didn't mean to go into this, but one of the questions is whether when one company, private company, is providing services to a lot of agencies or a lot of police, or governments around the world, whether there is any knowledge transfer, whether there's anything about the system that learns when it works for the CIA, and then the same knowledge could be knowledge in the system, not speaking about the data that is being transferred to the other customers, or whether this company is gaining more knowledge just by becoming a center for a lot of data that is accumulated from all the customers.
So I'll answer first. I would be the first one to make everything possible, and we have the tools to do that, to make sure that Palantir doesn't see a bit of data that we have as the Israeli intelligence. American citizens, we cooperate with the American intelligence, will not let a private company see the sensitive materials that we have on our side. And again, always try to ask yourself the question about Microsoft Word or Microsoft Windows. I use Microsoft Windows in the intelligence for many years. Potentially, they could also do the same, collect what I'm writing as documents or reports from intelligence sources and somehow send them out. But that would require, the American government or the Russian government to do that. I don't think it will be coming from the private companies.
The simple response is that we wouldn't be able to operate as a company if there were these transfer learnings that you're referring to.
In learning, I mean that the machine is getting better after it ran on the data.
Yeah, so that's the suggestion that the system is learning from interactions in any given environment doesn't actually reflect how the system works. So in some ways, the system is dumb because really what it's doing is it's helping to surface information that an end user interacts with. There's nothing that the system is deriving from those interactions. If there were, and I'm not saying there were, but if there were, the individual instances that are applied in any given customer environment are air-gapped, so that the instance that's applied by the Israeli government would have no interaction, no possible interaction with any other instance. Were that the case, none of our customers would trust us and frankly wouldn't be a viable business.
Question to Epistema. So one of the ways in which this system is taking us from an automated online discourse on Facebook that is only, you can either push like or do nothing, maybe dislike now, right? Into something that is smarter, right? And the question is whether this type of automated cognition is something that is empowering or is something that is making us even more dumb, right? So a lot of the literature on the Facebook discourse is linking this type of discourse to fascism, right? Because we create large, big crowds that are not thinking. How does this system that your product is actually making us more autonomous? How do you make it assistant and enable people to still decide against this?
It's a very good question. First of all, I must emphasize now, the system that I showed you is not thinking for itself. It's as good as the people participating in the discussion, but it follows the discussion in a way that it can analyze it and you don't have to read everything to yourself and make your own judgment. My philosophical background says that knowledge, like what we consider to know and what we consider to be true, depends on two things. First of all, on what we see from the world, what we perceive from the world. This is data. And the second thing is like our community of either experts, colleagues, friends, teachers, family, professors. We learn from each other. That's like what humans do. And usually humans, again, unlike computers up till now, we humans have this strange thing, we have different views. And we advance our views by arguments and counter-arguments, by asking, as any 4-year-old child do, we ask why, and try to understand you. And so we follow that patterns, and that's what we do. We do think that you can score truth. That's very strange to many of our customers initially, that you put a claim and after 2 weeks I can tell you it's 80% right. So people are not used to it, because when you put your view on Tesla, on Facebook or something, that's your view and then I have my view, and this is kind of a postmodern thing, each of us has his view, there's no truth, and that's the origin to my mind of post-truth. Now one word about Facebook, we didn't say that, but one of the founders of Palantir is Peter Thiel. He was the first investor in Facebook, and I'm very proud and happy to say that since the last year he's also investing in us. I think Facebook, you have to remember historically, like 2 more words about the internet, I'm sorry. We created this huge echo chamber that all of humanity can discuss together. Facebook is the best platform on which people are speaking to each other. But we didn't put any software to say anything about what they're saying. And Facebook was created for emotional, social benefits. So I want to see cats of my friends. I want to see where they spend a ski vacation or what they've done today. And therefore, all you have is emojis, right? You have a heart, you have a funny face, you have a sad face. It was not built for rational discussions. And then people, because it caught so well, people started discussing politics on it. but it's not built for that. Because if it was, you had to have main dojis and not emojis. So you have to say, this is a very clear statement, this is a very contrarian statement, this is evidence-based, this is not. You just don't have this capacity, so no wonder that you can put anything you want and the Russians can influence the elections.
Just to follow up on this, because this is so. When you create the cognitive maps of people, doesn't it make people more vulnerable to manipulation? Now that you have this data storage with all their cognitive maps, you can go to their employer, but this is also something that could be manipulated by employers or by the Russians, right?
I think it makes people more rational. Any software can be hacked. I used to teach here in Herzliya in the university analysis methods and logic, and I used to teach it and hope that students will go out and implement it wherever they go. Now I can put it in the software and make sure that they don't fall into some kinds of psychological biases, such as risk aversion, groupthink, or other things that I used to teach them and hope they internalized it. So we're trying to be very rational about it. I'm aware there are other aspects to human discussions that are not rational, emotional, and others, but this is what we're trying.
To OrCam. So this is a great device. It's really, especially for a person like me that is going to conferences and say, I don't believe we met, and people say, oh, you're a good friend. I think, some of the concerns is that, that you go, right, in your telephone with my picture, right, that you remember. I mean, we sort of, to some extent, feel that we can be in public space anonymous, and all of a sudden, we become, we're identified in your device, right? And so, to what extent do you think that there is a difference between keeping me as data on your phone or, keeping me in your memory that you're subject to all the vulnerabilities?
I think we, as humans, we always rely on our memory to do things. And our limitation in our memory creates some cultural behaviors. But we were not designed, so it seems, to live in big societies. Right? Big societies are easily manipulated. You can see it in the last 100 years of history. Whereas smaller societies are not as easily manipulated. And we can create tools for us, because we are living in a denser and denser world, to create better societies. And if you have the advantage of a small society is that you can help each other, do things, and can follow up on people. And anyone here remembers a phone call where they called their mother from a busy bus station, and you can barely hear each other, and she says, "Oh, you sound tired." She can barely hear you, but she says, "Oh, you sound tired," right? And it's something that we as humans can appreciate a lot, and it's something that gives us a lot of added value. But this is just one function that maybe we can provide ourselves now that we live further away and we see more people that we can remember. And we're busier with some things and we neglect other things. And we can create tools for us to improve ourselves as a humanity. I don't think there's a real problem here. Us as a company, we make sure we don't collect any data, we don't try to milk our customers to find their flaws, we can sell them.
Was the choice not to have a database of faces, was it a legal, ethical choice? Did you deliberate on this? Was it an option, or was it a technological driven choice?
It's an ideological choice. I don't want to wear a spying device. Why should I? And not every company has it. A lot of companies try to convince you need big data. But if you look at all the data you generate for yourself, if you just notice, you have enough big data for you to help you. And if you like drinking 5 cups of coffee and all of a sudden you drink 10, maybe it's a big change. But it says nothing about me. Maybe I don't like coffee. Why do I need to mix my data with your data? I have enough big data of myself. I don't need that. And we create technology that does it, and it requires a lot of cleverness. You can fit all of that in a small device. You don't need all that big data.
Did you have any pressure from investors to actually turn this into?
Yeah, investors say, oh, we want to spy on our customers, because that's what most companies do nowadays. But we don't like that.
Now, you started our conversation about regulations, and I guess I could hear that you are concerned that you are subject to a lot more regulation than is justified, right?
In any other vertical, in marketing or anything.
Right, and I guess medical information is probably the most sensitive information that we have, and even in countries that do not normally regulate privacy like the United States, still medical information would be the most secretive information, most protected information, for purposes of privacy. Do you think that for the purpose of innovation and the promise of the product that you are capable of producing now, it should be lifted?
I'll try to answer a few questions here.
Okay.
It's not one question. First of all, I think that privacy in some cases, and this is not a common view, but I think that in some cases it's overrated. I think the clearest example is that patients living in remote locations would rather have treatment available through cloud services and risk their privacy than not having it. This is the clearest case. Besides that, yeah, we are dealing with extremely sensitive information, but sometimes we forget the aim of regulation. The aim of regulation is not to prevent use of harmful technology. The aim of regulation is to promote a safe and beneficial use of technology. And if we forget that, sometimes we over-regulate. And I think this many times is the case in the medical industry. If a learning machine is fed data of millions of patients, I don't think that the patients should be notified on it. I think that any patient treated by a National Health Institute should know that he is donating his data for research. I think we will grow as a society by accepting that.
Thank you. Okay, Helen.
Yes. I just want to record what you said and use it next time I give my talks on privacy's contextual integrity. Because not only do I agree 100% with your observation, and I consider myself a very staunch privacy advocate, but I also think that in so many of the different industries, the information services industry are stealing the crown jewels of those industries that are being held back, and I'm talking about the US, by a certain formulation of privacy regulation where they identify covered entities as blah, blah, blah. But in the financial industry, you have the same things. Banks heavily regulated, and then you have these financial services companies that are like pulling out direct to the consumer a lot of information. You see it in education, you see it in healthcare, and I don't know why we're not recognizing this problem. So it's like, totally agree with you, and I hope that we'll push this case. I mean, I might think that there should be some more regulation of the information services, but I think that there should be some equity across. My question is about OrCam, and I think it's following up on Niva's question. I'm from Cornell Tech, and I work with Deborah Estrin on a small data and privacy project where the idea is that you provide services for people that's based on the data that they generate. But when we start delving into some of these systems, in fact, when it's a small provider, they always do need to link to, it could be like Google authentication or, step count, that's a third party SDK and so on. So I want to ask about yours. There's some processing, there's a lot of processing that's going on inside this tiny little device. And the question is, do you just like load the systems onto the device and that's it? Or is there some kind of ongoing connection to provide, the algorithms or the models back on your servers? So, I just want to push you on when you say it's all happening over here. What does that actually mean? Because even with Microsoft Word, the software as a service model, it's never all happening at the end device. There's always this ongoing networking.
Yeah, it's a wide spectrum question, so I'll feel free to choose the parts of it. Now, there is cross-pollination in anything, right? You can live in a city and you can be allergic to some plant there, right? So it gives you better ideas to research, but then you move to another city, you don't have that, whatever it is, and you have better ideas, right? So, did the city learn from you? It's a real question, right? And if you use Word and there's some feature you like a lot, and so Microsoft makes it better, and then Al-Qaeda uses the same feature, maybe you help them, right? It's not trivial, right? The boundary it's not trivial. It's like nature and nurture, right? It's not trivial where intelligence comes from, or where do ideas come out. We make sure to teach our system, so we do everything in-house, and you take the system and it's yours to use. But it's not trivial if you think about protection of people. It's not trivial. I know there's a famous case 2 or 3 years ago. I'll just give you a simple example that just to show you that you're all using spy devices, and these spy devices spy on each one of you, and you carry them, and you pay money to be spied upon, right? And it's kind of mind-boggling, especially for those of you who are over 20, because it didn't used to be like that. But there are big companies who spy on you, and again, it's not all bad. I mean, there's good examples, very good examples, and the boundary has to be defined in a way, but it's not trivial. And I'll just give you an interesting example that I bumped into when I was researching this, because I thought that we do way more than was possible before. What are the bad implications of it? So there's a famous case, I don't know famous, I was very surprised to hear about this case, and maybe you know about it, of a woman who sued her boss for raping her. And the police confiscated her Fitbit, which, it's in California, right? You talked about it?
No, I didn't talk about it. I know that.
So it's a very interesting case. So the police found her Fitbit, they took the data and they showed that in the time she's claimed to be raped, she wasn't raped. So her Fitbit, tested against her, and I don't know whatever happened, it's closed, but it's a very interesting case because we live in an era where it's very, very easy to collect data on people. It's so easy that you don't need your, here in Israel we have an identity number. In the US there's social security, it's not everybody has it, in the UK people are much against it, but you don't need it anymore. Right? The country doesn't need it anymore because it's very easy to locate people, not in any situation, but it's very easy. It used to be a very, very big decision, started maybe 100 years ago, in order to track population and do various things, but you don't need it anymore. It's very easy. If you walk in London, you'll be photographed. The Chinese police uses face recognition to, it's very easy. And if it's very easy, it's going to be done. The question is how to regulate it to make it useful. And if you want to, I definitely agree with you about sharing data and finding terrorists and criminals. I'm all for it. But it's not clear how to split it in a way that it's more constructive than harmful. And it's not a trivial question.
No, but you didn't answer the question.
Okay, sorry. All right.
When you said that all the processing happens here.
Yeah, I mean all processing happens there. There's nothing sending
Doesn't send you anything.
No, nothing.
Updates?
Yeah, software updates, you can get them.
And how are you getting that?
From the internet?
You're not connected.
Yeah, you can say, find an update and it connects to our servers and it downloads an update.
So there's a vulnerability, because you could connect to the HX.
Yeah.
That someone could also connect to the device.
Maybe, yeah. So we make sure it's not there. device doesn't store pictures or audio or anything. But yeah, you get software updates. But we make sure as a company we don't collect data on our customers. It's not it's not what we do. But you're right that it's not trivial, right? It has to be explained. But
We'll take more questions. Yes.
Yeah, I had some questions, but I'm going to go with one that was triggered by one of the last remarks about events at Epistema. You said you wanted to source rational discussions, so suggesting you exclude the emotional comments, but I think any well-balanced opinion has emotional infusion as well. It's pure rationality, it's also pure madness in some views. But connected to that, the network analysis you showed reminded me of discourse analysis and network analysis. And these methods are acknowledged to reflect meaning, create meaning in that sense, and not simply to present a neutral version of the meanings that are created on platforms. How do you view that in the sense that your app, in that sense, also creates meaning and does not simply represent such a thing as a neutral representation?
My fault because I was misunderstood, I think, or misrepresenting myself. I didn't say that emotional aspects of discourse are not important. I just said for the lack of time, resources, and invention on our part, we currently deal with irrational discourse. I think these are two aspects that at one point should be connected together, as I'm sure, because of my former capacity, that at one point the data layer will be connected to the discourse layer, because, for example, if you say something and the machine can understand the semantics of what you said, can automatically go into the data and bring what we philosophers call the black swan, a counterexample, to help you to develop your hypothesis. That would be a very interesting point, right? So I didn't mean that emotional aspects are not important. I just said we as a company don't deal with it. The representation of a discourse, a discussion, an argument is also an old technology. To some extent, you can go back to Aristotle and find it there. These mind maps that represent an argument in a two-dimensional space is not ours. I'm just using the technology and using algorithms. Again, I try not to go into the mathematics and technology of it. There's a new technology called graph databases that everybody uses on the data sources. And we use the same technology, the graph technology, for discourse and arguments and counter-arguments. So in that sense, we represent the discourse on a two-dimensional space, and therefore we can run algorithms to score the claims. If anyone is interested in the mathematics behind it, I'm happy to do so, but I don't try not to. I didn't answer the question, I think.
No.
Okay.
I was curious how you see the fact that any representation like that is not just a neutral representation, but also a creation, because it's a selection of arguments, it's a representation that is chosen, it's created, it's designed, it's not purely neutral. I mean, coming back to the technology, it's not neutral, it will steer a certain.
And it's purely.
I'm not saying it's evil, I'm curious to see how you see your role in representing or reflecting such a.
Currently, what I showed you is representing everything that all the participants in the group said.
Yeah.
So you can put a counterclaim, I can put a claim, you can ask me why, I put a reason, so on and so forth. The only thing it's not only, but the thing the machine does is calculate the level of confidence, what others call believability, of each of the claims based on what the community of the people participating said. So it's not the machine doing it, it's just kind of a communitarian epistemology, that's the real profession behind it. And we calculate the patterns of agreements and disagreements. By the way, it's much more sophisticated than what you see on other websites. But remember, like when you do the average of likes and dislikes, and people give you in many platforms like Quora and others, they give you the best answer based on many people just upvoting, it's the same. You still look at the first answer. So just try to make it a little bit better.
Can I take a pass at answering the question, Niva? I think it's a fair point. Any representation is going to be reductive in some sense. It won't capture all of whatever your ideological theory is. Won't capture all of the truth, or there may be no truth to capture because there's some notion of intersubjectivity, or you've given up on truth in any sense altogether. One of the ways that we've dealt with this issue in the graphical representations of data within the Palantir Gotham platform in the link charts is that I showed a picture of is to treat the ontology the way of modeling the world of information as a dynamic concept, which is to say it's not a fixed set of nodes and relationships amongst those nodes that an institution has to adopt. Rather, they have the ability to change those representations initially and also dynamically over time as their view of the world changes. And that oftentimes is an iterative process that they go through in trying to get the best representation based on their understanding of the data. We often view that as a much better improvement. It may not be ideal, but it's an improvement on the traditional method that they have to apply in interacting with the data, which is the data is in some tabular form in a relational database, which doesn't map it in any intuitive sense to the way that we think about entities, events, or other things in the world. So giving them the tools to be able to faithfully represent that information in an ontology is one critical method. And then part of that is also giving our customers the tools to represent concepts of uncertainty. So for example, if you have relationships, you're representing nodes, me and you as individuals on the graph, and you're trying to represent what that relationship between us might be. Are we friends or not friends, or colleagues? Representing that in different levels of certainty in terms of how you're thinking about those relationships are also things that we apply to identify those complexities and show the information. Does that get closer to answering your question?
Yes, very much. I think you're sort of saying what I'm saying. This is network analysis, and network analysis is sort of design of how you want to reflect that. That's basically.
You do make choices, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to collect a few more questions. You'll have to remember them, and we'll get back to them.
We will capture them on the camera.
Yes, yes. Yes.
My question will be for Tal. I'm thinking about whether there are like some data sharing. If the different hospitals in Israel envision a data sharing system for other hospitals, because I was thinking about like the disadvantage or the advantage position that the Sheba hospital might have compared like to other ones, and that if at some point we could envision like a kind of learning system that could be not only across Israel but Middle East or maybe the world. And the second question, maybe what are the differences with IBM Watson? Because it seems to me that your initiative seems coming from public and like to do good and like which I assume that IBM Watson too. But with one, there might be like a really strong business model behind, whereas like the other one might not be like just like if they collect the questions.
We're just collecting questions because we're running out of time.
Right. I want to take this in a different direction and ask about the dynamic effects of these technologies on human interactions. Because, and I'll use the OrCam example, because it's, I mean, as somebody who has a problem remembering people's names, that would be a wonderful technology for me. However, if I know that you're using that, and you're coming to me and saying, you're Michal, right? I met you at this, and I know that it's not real, okay? Would that affect our interactions? Would that affect our social network? Would that mean anything about you using that? Or the way that I will react to you? So,
Jill, my question is also for Tal. Once you get past the regulatory hurdles of actually collecting this data and analyzing it, I'm I'm wondering if you could say more about some of the dilemmas that might come up afterwards. For example, you mentioned that some of your analysis showed that people who went through the ER 10 years ago had undiagnosed diabetes. So are you required to actually go back and contact those patients or liaise with their doctors? So how do you handle those kinds of issues?
Okay, any other question? Okay, let's take.
I'll start. So, your first question, we have a lot of collaborations with hospitals in Israel and around the world, in Europe and in the United States. It's because patients behave differently. For example, if you research melanoma, you would expect that patients in sunny Israel wouldn't have the same data as patients in Sweden. So yeah, we do cross-country collaborations. As for Watson, Watson is a great engine and it solves a set of predefined problems. Google Health said it solves another set of problems, and there are so many problems that there's enough for everybody. Watson doesn't solve everything, far from it. And the last question, remind me? Yeah, thanks. Sorry.
Should I repeat the question?
No, I don't know the
Okay.
question. And the last question is actually complicated. It's extremely complicated. The question is of liability, basically. I think so. And it has a lot of use cases. For example, if I develop a learning machine that says that a patient has pneumonia and the doctor disagrees, and it turns out the doctor was wrong, is he liable? I don't know. What I do with such questions is just shoot them off to the legal department. That's usually my solution because I'm the technical guy. So I don't know, it's still a work in progress. And these are open legal questions all around the world.
Let me just say that on this legal question, we have a PhD student that is working on, right? Reasonable algorithms. This is your question from Fun.
I think humans are extremely capable, and we adopt to anything.
Yes.
They can operate like
Yeah. And you give people useful technology and they use it, and if it's harmful technology, they use it even more. History showed it. I think it's a good thing. What we do is a very good thing because we all have this problem. It's a problem. It's something that holds you back. And if you see me wearing it, and I know you because of this reason or another, so what? I don't see a big downside there. I think it will make us humans more human. Because there's many other things we forgot how to do, like phone numbers. We don't remember anymore, right? And what was the last time someone asked you, how did I get to Haifa University? It doesn't happen anymore. What? You don't have Google Maps? No. It doesn't happen? You don't. But the rest of us, No, it's something that people happily forget because they say, I have something better. Great. I don't have all that chunk of my brain I can devote to something else. Because we're amazing. Humans are amazing. And we do whatever we can make do with.
Yes. Human are amazing. Technology, not that. Not that amazing. But I think what makes human amazing is innovation, and we've seen quite a few great examples of it, and it's probably up to us in law and ethics to be innovative as innovation that we see in technology. Thank you very much for this discussion. There is great food waiting for you outside.